Today we're going to carry on with our work on pie charts. Now yesterday we were working on them using fractions. Today we're going to work on them using percentages. Now I know some of you find percentages a little bit more tricky, and if you do, just remember you divide by 100 and then multiply by whatever the percentage is. Now that formula works for any form of calculation. Now while I'm going through, I'm going to be using some of the shortcuts as well. But if you get stuck, come back to that method, divide by 100 and then multiply by whatever the percentage is, and you will get to the correct answer. Okay, so for this particular question, we've got 150 children took part in the survey about ice cream flavours. Now we've been asked to find how many people voted for vanilla. So we find vanilla, it's blue. So we've got 10% voted vanilla. Okay, so we need to find 10% of 150. Now, if you chose to divide by 100 and times by 10, you will get to the same answer. But one of the shortcut ways when you're finding 10% is just to divide by 10. So I can do 150 divided by 10 equals 15. So I know that 15 people chose vanilla. Nice and straightforward straight away. Now I can also use that information to help me look at some of the others. So if I'm looking at the banana, I also know that is 15. Now once I've got 10%, that helps me with this chart because they're nice even percentages. So if I know that 20% voted mint chocolate chip and I know that 10% is 15, I can just double that. So 20% equals 30 people. Now, the other one that I've got is 30. I've got two lots of 30%. Now, if I know that 10% is 15, I can actually say, right, well, I'm going to do whatever that is times by 3 because 3 lots of 10 make 30. So 15 times 3. I'm sure most of you can do this in your head, but I'm going to do it by calculation. 5 times 3 gives me 15. 1 times 3 is 3. Add the 1 is 4. So 30% is 45. So now I've actually managed to get all of the data I needed out of this calculation before I've even answered any of the questions. Now, question 1 was how many voted vanilla? We've got that, got 15. Question 2 is how many more people voted for chocolate than mint chocolate chip? Well, chocolate was 45. Mint chocolate chip was 30. So actually the answer to that question was 15. Okay, because the difference between the two. And the last question is how many people chose chocolate, banana and vanilla together? So how many people chose chocolate? 45. How many people chose banana? 15. And how many people chose vanilla? Also 15. Add it all together. So 5 add 5 add 5 is 15. 4 add 1, 5. Add 1 more, 6. Add another 1, 7. So in total, 75 people chose either chocolate, banana or vanilla altogether. Now the last problem was actually fairly straightforward because it was all based around 10%. So there was very little difficult calculating going on there. However, this one is slightly more complicated. We've got more people to start off with, but actually we've got multiples of 5% going on here instead. Now it says there are 200 pupils excuse me, in Key Stage 2 who chose their favourite hobbies. How many pupils chose each hobby? Now, the one I would go straight for is reading because it's the largest proportion. 50%, hopefully you can all remember, is the same as 1/2. So what is half of 200? Is 100. So we know immediately that 100 people said that they liked reading, which Mrs. Edwardson would be really, really pleased about. Now, then I would go for the 10% because 10% is nice and easy to work out. So 10% of 200, remember we divide by 2. Remember, if you struggle with that concept, divide by 100 times by the percent. So you divide by 100 times by 10. But if I want the cheats way, I can just divide by 10. So 200 divided by 10 equals 20. So I know that 20 people liked swimming. Okay, now, remembering what we've taught you about percentages, 5% is half of 10%. We've just worked out what 10% is, so I can halve that. So 20 divided by 2 will tell me what 5% is. So 5% equals 10. So we've got dancing was 10 and walking was 10. Now, the last two that we've got 15%. Now, if you think about it, we've worked out what 10% was. We've just worked out what 5% was. So actually, we can combine the two. So to make 15%, you'd need 10% plus 5%. Now, I know that 10% was 20. I know that 5% was 10. Add it together would equal 30. Okay, so this particular question, you are only given a part of the total number. It says 15 people in this survey have no siblings. So we know that the blue section must equal 15 because that's what it's just told us. So this section here. Okay, that 5%. So 15 equals 5%. Okay, we've got to use this information to find out how many people took part in the survey altogether. So we need to find the 100%. So one of the straightforward ways of doing that is, we know that's worth 5%. So I'm going to do 15 divided by 5 to find 1%, which will give me 3. And then I'm going to find 100%, is going to be 3 multiplied by 100. So it's 300 people. So you're using the facts you know. So this question, the answer equals 300. Okay, now we're going to use that information because the next question says, now work out how many people each segment of the pie is worth. Okay, so there's some straightforward ones. 5%, if I double it, I can get my 10%. That's nice and easy. So I'm just going to double that. So my 10% is the grey one. So 10% is 2 lots of 15. So it's going to be 30. That is nice and straightforward. The others, however, are slightly more complex. Now, remember the method we said to find percentages? You divide by 100 and you times by the percent. So use that method. Okay, so now we need to find out how much each one of them is worth. As we said, we found this 10%. So to find 1%, which we're going to need for all of the others, I'm going to take the original amount. We've worked out the original amount was 300. So I need to find 1%. Now, I know we've just done that, but this is another way of showing you. So 300 divided by 100 equals 3. Now, I'm looking for 1%, so I just do 3 times 1, which is 3. So I know 1% equals 3. So from there, I can find all of the others. So 9% is 9 times 3, which equals 27. So we've managed to work that one out pretty quickly. Now, the orange one is 17%, the 3 siblings. So go back and we use our 1% figure. So I'm going to do 17 times 3. 7 3s are 21. 1 3 is 3. Add the 2 gives me 5. So my 17% is 51 children. Now, 4 siblings is 28%. So I'm going to go back to my 1% again. And I'm going to do 28 multiplied by 3. 8 3s are 24. 2 3s are 6. Add the 2 gives me 8. So 84 people had 4 siblings. And the final amount was this 31%. So I'm going to use the same thing. I'm going back to my 1%. And I'm going to say 31 multiplied by 3. You should be able to do this one in your head, but 1 3 is 3. 3 3s are 9. So 93 people in the survey had 5 siblings. Now, I'm not going to worry about doing this because that will actually take quite a lot of time to do. I'm sure you are more than capable, if you were faced with a problem like that, of actually being able to do that. Right, the final question on this particular section is actually asking you to think logically about what you're being shown. It doesn't help the fact that actually the diagram is incorrect. This bit says it's 50%, it's 60%. So just to make sure that you're okay with that. Now, if we're looking at what we've got, before we even move on to what Jack is saying, we've got 120 boys in the survey and 100 girls in the survey. So if we put that down to remind us, that's 120 boys, that's 100 girls. Okay, so the graphs, whilst being the same size, are actually representing different numbers of children. Now, if we have a look at what Jack is saying, Jack says more girls prefer maths than boys because 60% is bigger than 50%. Well, as a percentage, yes, it is. But is it the actual numbers of children? Because that's what he's trying to say. He's saying more than, so he's talking about a specific number. So to do that, I'm going to look at maths, which is blue, and actually work out what 50% is and what 100% is. Sorry, what 60% is. So 50% of 120, remember, to find 50%, we divide by 2, we halve it. So half of 120 equals 60. So this 60% represents, this 50% represents 60 children. Now here with the girls, we've got 60% of 100. So to do that, I'm going to divide by 100 and times by 60. I could divide by 10 and times by 6 if I wanted, but I'm going to do it this way. So 100 divided by 100 gives you 1. And I'm going to do 1 multiplied by 60 equals 60. So actually, it's the same number of children. The difference is because the original survey was done on more boys than it was on girls. So the percentage of girls is higher, but the number of boys is the same as the girls. That's why this type of question is important. It's really, really important that you get this idea that it's the number of people who are involved in the survey that makes the difference to the responses at the end. Now I want you to have a go at the questions on the sheet that has been provided.